All right, so California Senator Dianne Feinstein is back in the news right now because we have some high profile Democrats from her own party and even from her own home state that are calling for her to resign amid some recent health issues that she's been having. I guess it's in regards to shingles, but also this conversation should be broader than that because, as we're going to get to in this video here, there have been reports from her staffers, from other fellow senators for like months, if not years at this point, that she is mentally not all there and definitely not equipped to be serving the largest state in the entire goddamn country. So here from NBC News, they say Senator Dianne Feinstein faces first calls to resign from members of Congress. So let's get into this here. They say Senator Dianne Feinstein has been facing these calls from fellow Democrats in Congress after a lengthy absence from the Senate due to health issues. Now, this isn't just some some issue that doesn't necessarily matter. We're talking about somebody who is on key Senate positions, for example, in the Judiciary Committee, where Democrats are trying to push forward with their judicial nominees. They can't do that without Senator Dianne Feinstein being there and being a part of that process. She's just been MIA for like months at this point, okay? I saw one estimate that said she's missed like 60 some odd votes out of the last like 80 or so. I mean, it's just a completely absurd situation. If you can't do your job, you should resign. And I mean, honestly, we're talking about somebody here, first of all, who is 89 years old. Okay, 89 years old. Now, granted, there are differences in how, old people end up aging, and some people are totally with it at 100 years old. I've known people in my life that, still go on like jogs when they're in their 90s and shit like that. There are some people who are perfectly with it. Some people, they start to, somewhat mentally fall apart in their 60s or 70s, right? Every person is different, right? Bernie Sanders, he's old as shit. He still appears to be fully mentally there, right? But Dianne Feinstein, not only is she almost 90 years old, but she's also not mentally there and clearly also going through physical struggles. And, on top of that, obviously, she's worth a fuck ton of money, okay? We're talking about somebody who is, according to Unusual Whales here, and maybe you could have a conversation about some nefarious sort of like backroom wheeling and dealing as we've seen with like Nancy Pelosi and other Republicans as well, with some of their nefarious stock trading portfolios where they make a bunch of money off of things that they are directly responsible for legislating over. But the point is, she's worth like $200 million. Okay, you are 89 years old, you're worth $200 million. Why do you not just go retire on a beach? What is the actual advantage for her or for her family members, for that matter, who are allowing her to continue to do this to herself, right? What is the advantage to not just retiring and just going out and enjoying whatever time you have left on the planet? Why do you insist to hold on to your grip on power when you are not even capable of doing your actual job? I mean, it's depressing. It's, honestly, like, sad to see to some extent, but at the same time, I'm not going to have that much sympathy, because you are a person who is in a high up position of power, right? I've had some of my family members, both of my grandparents on my mom's side, that have gone through things like dementia and Alzheimer's and, other illnesses as well. It's one of the worst things that you can imagine. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, but at the same time, you are a public representative, right? If you're just some random grandma or something like that, then sure, you'll get my full sympathies on that side of it. Obviously, I don't want anybody to be sick, but you are a public representative. You represent the largest state in the country, tens of millions of people. There's no excuse for this, okay? So they continue with Khanna's statement here. They say, or he says, "It's time for Senator Feinstein to resign," he tweeted. "We need to put the country ahead of personal loyalty, 100%. He says, "While she has had a lifetime of public service, it is obvious she can no longer fulfill her duties. Not speaking out undermines our credibility as elected representatives of the people." And again, he's 100% correct. How does this look when you have somebody who can't even show up to do their job, who for, years at this point, we've been having reports that she is cognitively not able to do her job? What does it look like for the Democratic Party to continue protecting her? I mean, keep in mind, even, guys like Obama and Clinton and all of these other establishment ghouls within the Democratic Party, they were coming out and endorsing her for her most recent election cycle. I believe that was back in 2018. And even then, it's like, really? We're talking about California, a more, left-leaning, more progressive state. You're telling me we can't get this elderly, senile, corporatist politician out of this office? I mean, really? That's what we're talking about here? It's an insane situation. But he elaborated here to NBC News directly. He says, we have a crisis in the judiciary with extremist judges stripping away women's rights. You can't preach on television about the danger of these judges and then sit silently as Senator Feinstein misses vote after vote to confirm pro-choice judges. It's time for California officials who care deeply about reproductive rights to call on her to step down at this moment in history. And credit to Khanna for sticking his neck out there and being one of the few people who is willing to even openly talk about this. Again, we had reports a long ass time ago. This article was back from last April. Okay, so this is a whole year ago that this article came out, and you had fellow senators who were colleagues of hers who were coming out and behind the scenes, okay, not actually giving their names on any of these quotes, but behind the scenes they're willing to talk about this, but then you're not willing to talk about this publicly. I mean, that's just a fucking embarrassment, right? I mean, obviously this is something that should have come a long time ago. We also had this example just more recently here in 2023, back in February. She announced her retirement on Twitter with this statement that's shown on the screen right there. Announced her retirement later in the day or the next day. Some reporters asked her about her retirement, and she forgot that she had announced her own retirement. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. Now, we continue here in the article. They say Feinstein, who is again 89 years old, who has not voted in the Senate since February 16th, said early March that she had been diagnosed with shingles. On Wednesday, after calls for her resignation, she issued a statement, but did not provide a timetable for returning to Washington. She says, "I intend to return as soon as possible once my medical team advises that it's safe for me to travel. I understand that my absence could delay the important work of the Judiciary Committee, so I've asked Leader Schumer to ask the Senate to allow another Democratic senator to temporarily serve until I'm able to resume my committee work." Okay, so you're just sort of leaving them in limbo. Now, as they go on to point here, it's not exactly going to be easy to get another Democrat temporarily appointed to this position. You need to overcome the filibuster. You need 60 votes, right? So that part of it is already going to be difficult enough. But then she's saying she's going to come back after this bout with shingles in some, amorphous, unidentified timetable to return. I mean, what are we doing here, man? It's honestly a complete joke. And I really do blame Senator Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, for a lot of this, because this is your party, right? Okay, we have a very close split right now in both the House and the Senate. You can't afford to just have one senator MIA because of her mental illness, because of her physical illnesses. You cannot afford to do that in a time like this, especially not on the Judiciary Committee. But again, he's saying that he's going to come out and he'll, push forward with this process to get her replaced and all of that. Fine, that's good, I guess, for, the temporary situation. But this is something that should have come a long time ago when you guys were talking about it behind the scenes and not willing to come out and publicly say these things, right? This is something that should have happened so long ago. Now, with all of that being said, we still have some Democrats who are trying to defend her right now. Okay, so here from The Hill, they say, just in, Pelosi on calls for Feinstein to resign. She says, "I've never seen them go after a man who was sick in the Senate." What? So this is about sexism now? Are you calling Khanna a sexist or something? Is that the implication of what you're saying here? Anybody who criticizes the fact that Dianne Feinstein is senile and is sick with a physical illness with shingles and cannot perform her job and has been MIA for months now, has missed massive swaths of the votes that are key to continue appointing these key judges to protect people's, civil rights or, women's rights with abortion, okay? Anybody who talks about that is now a sexist, I guess, in the mind of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, what a pathetic leadership class that the Democratic Party is dealing with here, okay? Whether it's Nancy Pelosi, whether it's Chuck Schumer, whether it's other, senior members within the Democratic Party, including Feinstein herself. I mean, this shit, again, on the personal level, you feel bad for her, right? You feel bad for all of that. Nobody wants to see anybody have dementia or get sick with shingles or be on their way out of their life in their elderly years. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to, dunk on them for that. But you are public officials. You are public representatives. You have a job to do. If you are not able to do that job, then somebody else should fill in. So obviously, Dianne Feinstein should resign. Khanna is 100% correct about that. But we're going to have to wait and see, I guess, because it looks like the leadership class within the Democratic Party is still going to, at least to some extent, try to protect her for the near future.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best Politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying